the short-term OSCE observer mission.
Thank you very much, Katya. Baylar ve bayanlar, sizlere içtenlikle hoş geldiniz demek istiyorum. So, everybody, hi. You see what observation does. You learn the language of country. So, thank you, Katya, and thank you all for attending our press conference this afternoon. And it is also a pleasure to see some of your faces again. So let me start by thanking my colleagues, Frank Schwaber, who is leading the delegation from Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe, and Ambassador Peterson, head of mission here in Turkey. We are here to announce the main conclusions of our joint election observation mission to yesterday's second round of the presidential election here in Turkey. I would like to start by thanking all the Turkish people once again for their warm welcome in their beautiful country. It was a true pleasure to observe the general elections and to come for a second round of the presidential election, a first in the history of direct presidential elections in Turkey. Let me emphasize that the rule of law, the respect for fundamental rights and freedoms, are the very foundation of a well-functioning democracy. These interconnected pillars demand our unwavering attention, not only on election days, but also beyond. I will now share our main conclusions related to the second round of the presidential election as a continuation of the statement we delivered after the first round. The runoff presidential election held on 28 May offered voters a choice between genuine political alternatives, and voter participation remained high. However, as in the first round, biased media coverage and the lack of a level playing field gave an unjustified advantage to the incumbent. The election administration technically managed the election efficiently, but its lack of transparency and communication largely persisted. While the absence of regulation of several aspects of the second round did not provide legal certainty, positively, the Supreme Electoral Council issued multiple regulations to remedy some of these legal gaps. I wonder whether the microphone functions. It does? Can I continue? Yes, okay. In the subdued yet competitive campaign, candidates were able to campaign freely. However, harsher rhetoric, inflammatory and discriminatory language by both contestants, along with the continued intimidation and harassment of supporters of some opposition parties, undermined the process. In an environment with restrictions on freedom of expression, both private and public media did not ensure editorial independence and impartiality in their coverage of the campaign, detracting from the ability of voters to make an informed choice. Election day itself was generally calm and well administered. However, instances of deficient implementation of certain procedures, particularly during the vote count, were noted. There is much more to say, and before I pass the floor to my colleagues so they can provide their input, please allow me to sum up my overall impressions. In short, our assessment of the second round of the presidential election is similar to the one we shared with you 2 weeks ago. Concerns raised ground over the lack of a level playing field and the unfairness of the campaign remained unaddressed, with the incumbent president continuing to benefit from an unjustified advantage. Regretfully, the use of harsher rhetoric by both contesting sides that was discriminatory and inflammatory further polarized the political environment and Turkish society. I would like to applaud the democratic spirit demonstrated by the people during these past weeks. Voters came out in great numbers, including yesterday, and it is crucial that the winner makes genuine efforts to ensure the unity of Turkey. We stand ready to continue to support and cooperate with Turkey in its aspirations to strengthen its democracy based on the rule of law and respect for human rights. Thank you once again, and I will now give the floor back to you, Katja.
Thank you very much. We now turn to Frank Schwaber, who heads the delegation from Greece.
Thank you very much, Nicola, and good afternoon. Before I come to the elections, I would like to use the opportunity, since I'm not here as a German, but I am a German, to remember on the arson attack in Germany 30 years ago on 5 Turkish citizens who were dead. Now, at the end, there were 17 others injured, and it was Gülsün Ince, 27 years, Hatice Genç, 18 years, Gülistan Öztürk, 12 years, Hülya Genç, 9 years, and Sayne Genç, who was a small child, just 4 years, and I really would like to commemorate those who were innocently and brutally murdered. Masum Çavi, Hasice, Kadeden Deri, Aniolas. I think it was necessary on a day like this. Now I would like to come to the elections. And I would like to thank as well, like Father, our host country. And I would like to say that we had some incidents, and it was not easy for some of us not to go to polling stations in the first round, so it was better now. But I would like to say that there is still maybe some space for improvement. And I would like to underline that we are here due to normal procedures of our organization. Turkey is under monitoring, and because of this, we were here all together with around 40 people over the 2 rounds. In this round with 20 people. And I would like to thank for sure OSCE and ODIHR for the very, very good cooperation. We are not able to monitor elections without you, and it's very good that knowing that we have sometimes different things to do and to look into different things in such elections, that we cooperate in this way, and we have our final statement here all together. The second round of the presidential elections has resulted in a clear winner. This we have to say. Nevertheless, the second round also took place, like the first round, in an environment that in many ways does not provide the conditions for holding democratic elections. Turkey must now implement, and I really would like to stress this, the judgments of the European Court of Human Rights, and above all release Osman Kavala and Selahattin Demirtas. In the future, the Supreme Electoral Council must be committed to the greatest possible transparency in order to strengthen trust in the electoral process. So I really would like to underline that finally we have the same situation like in the first round. So we have always to look on the election day, and again there is a very clear winner. This is what we have to say on this election day, but we have to look into the environment, democratic environment in the country as well. And there it is like 2 weeks ago that we have to describe the media situation as very limited, that we see a lot of journalists in prison, and that we see a situation that causes self-censorship in this country. And on the ranking of Reporters Without Borders, Turkey is on one of the last places in the world ranking. At the same time, we have the difficult situation for the opposition. We have the former co-chair of the HDP in prison. We have the closing procedures about HDP, and we have a ruling against the mayor of Istanbul, Imamoglu, what at the end maybe prevent him from running as a candidate as president in this country. But at the same time, people voted again, and a lot of people go to vote again, and we have a very high turnout again, and they could express their opinion. And at the end, if somebody asked me if this what the people throw into the ballot box, if this is what they counted at the end, and this is the result of the elections, then I would say yes, it is. With some problems, yes, we saw the problems, but finally that's the outcome. Three things at the end. First, I really would like to urge, like Farah as well, to refrain after the campaign from violent speeches, hate speeches, about against minorities, whether it's LGBTIQ from one side of the political spectrum, or if it's refugees, what we unfortunately saw in the second round from the other side of the political spectrum. Second, I really would like to urge the Central Electoral Council and those who are responsible, those who are the lawmakers, to follow the recommendations of the Venice Commission and to do everything to be as transparent as possible. This is very important in a country where there's some mistrust in this electoral procedure, that there is a lot of transparency by this organization. And finally, I have to strengthen again, in line with the outcome of the summit of the heads of states and governments of our organization, Council of Europe in Reykjavik, who met between the first round and the second round of the elections, that Turkey has to implement, like all other countries, the judgments and the rulings of the European Court of Human Rights. That means they have to release at first Osman Kavala, because we are in a procedure under Article 46.4 and we have to proceed on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Finally, last but not least, we move to Ambassador Jan Petersen, who heads the ODIHR mission.
Thank you very much, and let me join the others in welcoming you to this press conference, and thank you for your continued interest in our observation mission. Before I talk about our findings, I would like to thank the Turkish authorities for their invitation to observe, and I would also like to thank our partners in the International Election Observation Mission from the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, as well as the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, for the ongoing and excellent cooperation. I've been in Turkey with a team of election experts since late March, which has given us a considerable period in which to closely observe the run-ups to both rounds of the elections. For the last 2 weeks, we have continued our conversations with state officials as well as with the civil society, and have observed the work of the election administration as well as the tone and substance of the campaign. A particularly important aspect of our observation is our ongoing media analysis, to which I will return shortly. And with nearly 160 observers spread out across the country for the second round, it has been possible for us to make a statistical assessment of the voting process of the election day. Following our observations of this second round of presidential election, I'd like to go into a few points more in detail. First of all, I'd like once again to congratulate the people of Turkey for turning out to vote in such high numbers. Citizens were able to choose between real political alternatives in yesterday's runoff, and the campaign period was mostly peaceful. The campaign ahead of the second round was more low-key than the run-up to the first round, although it picked up as election day neared and candidates were able to campaign freely. The election administration, led by the Supreme Electoral Council, managed preparation for the second round efficiently in a short time frame, at the same time as finalizing the parliamentary vote. This is to be commended. However, the lack of transparency observed during the first round continued, with the national election authorities holding closed sessions and withholding the publication of most decisions, including on complaints related to the first round results. This further corroded trust in its work, which is key to citizens' confidence in the entire electoral system. Regrettably, I must also note the language used in the campaign over the last 2 weeks. It's been polarized and harsh, with accusations of collaboration with terrorist organizations by both political camps. In the same period, and of great concern, supporters of some opposition parties continue to face intimidation and harassment. The prosecution of journalists and bloggers continued ahead of the second round and included cases based on the legal prohibition of insulting public officials, further limiting freedom of expression. This is most disquieting, and it cannot be emphasized enough how important this freedom is for democracy. My final point, one of the 2 final points, concern media bias, which was clear in the first round and continued to be so ahead of the second. As I mentioned earlier, media monitoring is an integral part of our observation, and we noted ahead of the second round that many broadcasters did not meet the legal obligation to provide impartial coverage of the campaign. Neither did they give equal opportunities to the 2 presidential candidates, with the public broadcaster significantly favoring the incumbent, and a similar bias noticed in numerous private media outlets. The majority of these broadcasters also often blur the distinction between facts and opinions in their news coverage, selectively presenting the coverage in favor of a particular candidate. My final point is election day, which itself was mostly peaceful, although there were isolated instances of violence that were mostly directed against opposition supporters. Observers also noted cases of group or family voting, while the secrecy of the vote was potentially compromised due to the layout of some polling stations. While the presence of party observers and civil society representatives were positive, their activities were hindered in numerous cases. Finally, a number of procedural shortcomings were observed during the count. The points I have just mentioned are some of the most important from our ongoing observation, because yes indeed, I and the team of experts will remain in Turkey for several days still to observe the aftermath of the election and how any complaints or appeals are dealt with. For many of the aspects of our observation, I would recommend that you take a copy of our report together with the press release on your way out, and you will find some interesting figures in that report. And then, last but not least, I would like to express my gratitude to the team working with me here in Ankara, as well as long and short-term observers spread out across the country. Without you, there would be no election observation. Thank you very much.
Many thanks. There's time now for your questions. Is the microphone working? Good. There's now time for your questions. As this is a press conference, we will only be taking questions from journalists, although you're all very welcome here today. I'd therefore be grateful if you could begin by introducing yourself and your media outlet before asking your question. We do have simultaneous translation, so you're welcome to ask questions in English or in Turkish. Are there any questions from the floor?
Thank you. So this is on the first election I observed in Turkey was in 1989, and I was charmed by the way you would see husband and wife with their children marching to the polling stations. It was as if the election was an occasion for a family outing. And I think this is one of the aspects making for such a high turnout in Turkish elections. However, you are raising objections to family voting. Say if husband and wife and adult daughter or adult son go to the polling booth all together, what do you expect the polling officials to do? To say, hey, the three of you take a break, one by one, or something like that? What is your objection to family voting? The other thing is, I want to know something about, there were objections raised about alleged irregularities in the first round. Did you find that the Supreme Electoral Council aggressively pursued those objections? In Turkey, we often think that the Supreme Electoral Council is too laid back when it comes to complaints about irregularities. What is your impression of the way they respond to allegations of irregularities?
Thank you very much. First of all, on family voting, I mean, this is something that is a long-standing and widely shared opinion that this thing should not happen. And I think it's pretty easy to avoid it, actually, for the election officials to gently tell the people how this should be done, and I'm absolutely sure that will go very well indeed. They are, of course, coming to the same polling stations, and I guess it will be pretty easy to do it according to the rules and still be that very nice family outing as you suggested. So I don't see any contradiction. But on the second question, it's a little bit difficult at this stage to say, because the process has not yet been finalized. We have not yet had the official numbers out, in spite of being told that on the 28th of May we would have the final results of the parliamentary elections. And we, as we state quite clearly in our report, that we have concerns about the transparency. We are simply not given the decision and the openness which we need. So we are still waiting, and as I said, we are going to stay in the country for another week. So I guess we will have a better answer to the question when we see their decisions.
I would like to add also to the last point. We indeed criticize also the lack of transparency of election administration strongly in our first statement. We had luckily the opportunity of meeting the chairman of SEC and also two other committee members on last Friday. And this is a very good beginning of a conversation, I think, that I hope we will be able to continue that and to see how really the transparency of election administration could be higher. I think this is the lessons learned, at least from this election, that there is a little bit difference between the first part, first round and second round. We saw in second round some improvement, and we hope that that will be actually continued.
Just to prevent a misunderstanding about family voting, that doesn't mean that you make a nice trip or whatever with your family to the polling stations. In Germany, I always take my children, and they can even go and look what I'm doing. That they should understand how the democratic procedures work. No, what we mean with family voting, there's one part of the family, mostly a man, who try to, let's say, lead all the others and to show them where they have to make, here not the cross, the stamp. That's the situation, no? That you have a situation where it obviously looks like one is the chef of the family, and he shows all the others what to do. And this is what happened and what we witness in some cases, and what we want to prevent for the future.
Mr. Schwab, are you saying you're objecting to more than one family member going into the polling booth at the same time? That I quite understand. Yes. But it sounded from Mr. Peterson that he didn't like husband, wife and adult child going to the polling station at the same time.
Then I can clear this up, because I just mentioned the family voting. I think I mentioned it once, and I think we all know what it means. That is simply that they do it one by one. So I didn't make any other reference to this. So I may have been unclear, but I'm not quite sure how I was unclear. But anyway, now I think we are in agreement, all of us.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions of the lady in yellow?
İzninizle Türkçe sormak istiyorum. Deutsche Welle Türkçeden Gülsen Sulaker var. Bu seçimlerin önemli bir... Okay. If you want also, I can ask you. No. Okay. In Turkish or English? In Turkish. Türkçe? Okay. Bu seçimlerin önemli bir gündem maddesi de adaylardan birinin Okay, I can ask in English. Okay, don't worry. Sorry. One of the aspects of these elections, I think how can we say, fabricated footage of the President Mr. Erdogan about linkage, so-called linkage of the CHP leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu with the terrorist organization PKK. I think you saw these footage, these videos, and President Erdogan actually accepted that these footage are the montage. These are the not the real ones, but the fake ones. So how do you observe these developments about and these discussions? And did you add this topic in your report in the coming weeks?
If I understand correctly, you are referring to the role of fake news, or not?
Fake news and fake videos of Mr.
Exactly,
Erdogan.
fake videos and really trying
Yes,
to...
fake videos of Mr. Erdogan, yes.
I think Mr. Peterson can actually elaborate on this whole media monitoring. But before that, I would like to emphasize we are very much critical about this polarized language used. And actually from both sides, accusations, inflammatory language, discriminatory language, and I think now the elections are over and there is a clear winner. This is something that really needs a lot of care and also healing, if you want, in the society, because it deepened a lot the division in the society, and I think this is something that really needs attention, and we hope to see it in the coming weeks and months that atmosphere and that landscape actually changes.
Thank you very much. I think I know what you're talking about. That was a very specific incident. Our report will be based on factual observations, but that does not mean that we have to that it is possible to give all the facts in the report. The important thing is that we have a factual background for what we are doing. When it comes to what we are observing and recommending, what we say in the report is that the allegations of connections and to terrorist organizations is something that we heard from both sides. We are not going into concrete arguments, the concrete incidents here, but the issue using the terrorist allegation is one which we are dealing with. If we had the obligation to go into or mention all the concrete incidents, it would be a pretty long report, and it is not necessary to get through our main conclusions. So sometimes we have concrete examples, but that is just to underpin our general observations. So you shouldn't put too much into whether it is or whether it is not mentioned in our footnotes.
As an organization, we really strongly condemn all kinds of terrorism. We really have to ask each and everyone to be careful to accuse others to be connected to terrorism. About the specific video you spoke about, I think one problem is not just that the video was produced. The other problem is that it was used or shown in media with no comments at the end. I would understand that we should have a media situation in the country where they really try to explain the video and to criticize it as well in a way, but if you have a biased media situation where the media just take the video without any comments on it, then it's really a concern and a problem. And this is in the whole description we have in our report about the whole media situation in the country.
Thank you very much. Are there any more questions from the floor? I don't see any. Check to see if there are any that have come in online. No, yes, this question has come online. Question has come in. Do you have enough evidence after 2 rounds with the same shortcomings to conclude whether the elections were both free and fair?
I can start by saying that, in a complex situation like the situation where we are in Turkey, with this enormous participation of the people of Turkey, and with our really understanding that the people had the choice between genuine political alternatives. It is very, maybe very short-sighted to end up by just saying it was fair, or it was not fair, or it was free, or it was not free. I think we have to take into account the complexity, the different actually observations that we did from the beginning till end. I think we have been very clear about that there was unfair, unjustified actually advantages for the incumbent president and for the ruling parties, because especially also of media bias, because of this media coverage, because of the lack of access to media by the opposition, because of that some political actually people were facing legal problems, persecution, and so on. Yes, this has all been part of this process, but putting on a label would be difficult because it has all these actually elements in it.
If I may just add, echoing what was just said, elections are such a complex process. And if you see our report, you will see that some of it we have a positive evaluation, some rather negative evaluation depending on which part of the process we focus on. And that is why we always avoid giving sweeping one-liners, because that is simply not doing justice to the complex process that we have seen. So I agree, absolutely agree with what you said. But since my team is responsible for the observations, I must say that for those conclusions which we put into our report, I would say, yes, I think we have enough background for giving these assessments, not enough evidence. Sometimes we would like to have more evidence, then we are careful in our judgment, but where we have clear recommendations and clear opinions, yes, I think we have enough.
I say the question how to describe an election with one or two words is difficult, and but for sure, if I would ask my children if there are two teams playing football and one team have shoes and the others not, would they say it's fair or not? I don't know. So it's not easy to describe it when you don't want to do it with one sentence. So I fully understand that we have this long-term observation mission and we have so many things to evaluate, so we don't want to reduce it on one or two words, but I would like to underline what I said in my statement. Nevertheless, the second round also took place in an environment that in many ways does not provide the conditions for holding democratic elections. So I think it's critical enough to describe it, but again, there is much more than to describe it just with one sentence. I fully understand this.
Thank you very much. We're just waiting for the translation of a question coming in from public TV, as I understand. Bear with me briefly. Question for Ambassador Peterson. You met with the management of RTSC and TRT. How would you comment about those meetings? Were they transparent to give you the answer you asked? And did they give you verifiable answers? Did the broadcast in Turkey correlate with the answer that you got from them?
I will not go into all individual meetings we had and characterize them. I think the important thing is will be the conclusions we have in our report, and you will see from our report that we have critical comments on the media situation. Actually, that is one of the, I would say, one of the key findings in our report. So I refer you to the report as written.
Thank you very much. Just let me check. No more questions online. So if there are no further questions from the floor, then we would stop here. As well as the statement my colleagues were mentioning and the press release, which are outside on the table for you in both English and Turkish, I'd like to mention the fact that approximately 2 to 3 months from now, we will be publishing a final report summarizing all of our observation, which will also contain recommendations to the authorities for how to improve the situation for next time. So you may want to keep an eye out for that, for the answers to your questions in the longer term. Thank you very much again for your interest.
Pardon, hanımefendi.
Pardon, ben...